Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of the Self-Discovery Podcast. So, in the time that I started this podcast, which was the beginning of February, there has been so much that has changed on a global level. And I'm speaking specifically about the coronavirus. I started following this virus in January when the reporting was coming out of China that there was this awful flu-like virus going around, and now it has perpetrated and gone all across the United States, as all of you already know. I don't have to tell you any of that. But all of that to say, things have changed so drastically, so quickly, seemingly overnight. And so I wanted to do a podcast about this, and I'm going to call this podcast When the Rug Has Been Pulled From Underneath You. And I feel like there's been so much swirling around on the internet and on all kinds of different forms of media. All of these ways to combat fear when it comes to this epidemic, which I think is really good and necessary. But as I was preparing this content, I didn't want to be redundant with what I was going to do. I didn't want to talk about combating your fear on this virus because there's so much amazing content on that, which I will touch on, my favorite, as we dive into this content. I wanted to focus more on finding a new normal amidst this chaos, because all of this talk about fear and combating fear is really helpful. But again, I'm a very tactile, like, spell it out for me, tell me what I need to do kind of person. And I wanted to know a way to deal with this in a healthy, positive, but realistic way on a day-to-day basis. So this episode is all about cultivating a new normal in your daily life amidst this chaos of the coronavirus. You know, I never even considered in my lifetime, in our lifetime, that we would be dealing with an epidemic on this scale. You know, I remember studying this stuff in history class in school multiple times, the Black Plague, the Spanish flu, all of those things, even Ebola. Even when Ebola was happening, I thought the United States is going to figure out a way to contain this and it's not going to hit us. And this particular epidemic, the coronavirus, I think is just flipping all of our worlds upside down. And so it's absolutely understandable why there's so much fear around it. And I listened to a talk, I'm going to touch on this just briefly. I listened to a talk by Elizabeth Gilbert on Insight Timer, which is my favorite meditation app. It is just fantastic. There are a bunch of free meditations on there as well as paid meditations, but she talked about fear, and combating fear isn't eliminating fear. It's figuring out how to coexist peacefully with it. And in her talk, she said when she finds herself in a very fearful state, even paralyzed by fear, which I have been in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure so many of you have felt that way too. She said she sits down and she writes herself a letter from love. And she allows love to speak to her what she needs to hear. And she said, I don't care if it's my imagination or if it really is a higher power coming through. Every time I sit down and write myself a letter from love, I feel like I've gotten the salve that I so desperately need. And so while I am going to talk about finding a new normal today, if you are paralyzed in the fear right now and stuck in that place, then I would encourage you to do that, to write yourself a letter from love. I did that exercise and it changed my day. It made me feel like I wasn't alone. So again, combating fear is not about eliminating it. It's about figuring out how to coexist with it, because fear is part of life. And fear right now is very real for very legitimate reasons. And so I don't want to get on here and try and preach to you to not be fearful anymore, because I think fear is a very natural human response to the unknown that's happening right now. But all that being said, we don't have to stay in a place of fear 24/7. We can still live our lives and experience joy even amidst all of this hurricane of turmoil. And I would encourage you to do that. And here's why. Because you or me or anyone else being in a fearful state all day long is not going to do anyone any good. It's not going to do us any good. It's not going to do our neighbors any good. It's not going to do our family or our friends any good. So the more we can shift out of that state of mind, the better we will be individually, and from a community perspective and globally. So all that being said, I want to level with you guys because that's what I do on this podcast. And I would be lying if I said that I hadn't been gripped by fear or by doubt in the last couple of weeks, just feeling so absolutely untethered, knowing that this virus is on our shores and spreading so rapidly. And for the last 10 days or so, maybe a little bit more, I have felt so unlike myself, and I have felt such sadness, which is an absolutely normal human response to so much chaos happening around us. But because I am who I am, and I like to understand and know myself, which is all part of the self-discovery process, right? I started diving into my journal and going, what are the specific reasons that I feel sad? Because maybe if I can identify the specific reasons that I'm feeling so disturbed, truly, then maybe I can figure out a way to shift my perspective and dig my way out of this, because I don't want to stay in this state for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3, 4, 6 months, however long this is going to go on. And so this is kind of what I came up with, and this is essentially straight from my journal. And these are the reasons that I feel like I have been just so disconnected. I haven't been grounded. I have felt separate from my own body, completely and utterly disjointed and sad. And here they are. I had such high hopes for 2020. I went into the beginning of this year letting go of 2019 because it was such a hard year, feeling like 2020 was going to be amazing. It was the year of go, let's do this. Let's put all my dreams on the line, all my hopes on the line, and just run after it. And while we all still can put our hopes and dreams on the line and put our necks on the line and go after everything that we want to go after, there's a new reality. We are in our homes right now for the most part. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people don't know if they're going to have a job to go back to. Some people are physically ill and being hospitalized. Other people are physically ill and still in their homes. And so I in no way, shape, or form want to give up on 2020 because we're still early on in the year. It's barely the second quarter. But at the same time, we do have a new reality that we have to face. And so I think there has been a part of me that has been mourning this idea that I had for 2020 and how quickly it changed seemingly overnight. Another reason for me feeling so far from being grounded is that I'm an empath, and I am just feeling and have been feeling all the feelings, watching the news, experiencing essentially what people are experiencing wherever they are, and just feeling their pain, feeling the worry, feeling the sense of fear. That has been so hard. So it's felt like a fire hydrant of feelings. Another reason, and this is, I want to be sensitive about this because people are dealing with things that are so beyond this particular sadness, but last summer for my birthday, my husband surprised me with 2 tickets to Paris for 2 weeks. And we were supposed to go in April 13th, and we had to cancel our trip. So, for the last 8 months, I have been so looking forward to and working so hard in preparation for this 2-week trip to Paris that now has been canceled. And so that was a disappointment. That was a real disappointment. Another reason I felt sadness, and in particular right here, almost paralyzed to move forward, is because I don't know what I'm moving forward to. Are people going to be listening to podcasts while they're at home? Are people going to be watching YouTube videos? Oh, you think yes, but at the same time, I have no idea because everything is flipped upside down. Are there going to be people who need branding and marketing help for my business? So am I going to have any income coming in? That feeling of just, oh my gosh, I know I need to move forward, but I have no idea what I'm walking into next. Another reason, I have been totally addicted to social media recently and the news. And so every spare minute that I've had, I've been connected to some kind of device, looking at what people are saying on social media or watching the news. And that has been so draining because it's sucked me into this vortex of fear and doubt and negativity and partisan politics. Another reason, and this one is very personal to me, but I gave up coffee at the end of February, which I've talked about, and I've just felt off kilter from not having all of that caffeine being injected into my system, which, by the way, I've been a lot calmer and I've slept so much better. So I think I picked the perfect time to give up caffeine because I think all of this anxiety and fear surrounding the coronavirus with caffeine would have sent me over the edge and I probably wouldn't have slept for the last couple of weeks. So, but anyways, all that to say, I've just, I'm kind of finding a new normal without caffeine. And then the last reason that I wrote in my journal for why I've been feeling so untethered, ungrounded, is that I haven't been taking time for stillness. I have been waking up and turning on the news, going to bed, watching the news. And this has caused this great separation between my soul, that heart of who I am, and my body. It's like I've been totally and utterly, completely stuck in my head. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in a perpetual state of being stuck in my head and my own thoughts, things just get kind of nasty and negative in there. And so all of these circumstances are, and so I think all of these emotions, the whole gamut of emotions, are totally natural. We are experiencing something that's unprecedented in our lifetime. But I also don't want to give into that. I don't want to give into the fear. I don't want to give into the doubt. I don't want to give into depression or sadness. And so I feel responsible to evaluate where I am and figure out things that I can do on the daily to elevate the way that I'm thinking, to elevate the way that I'm feeling physically, to elevate the heaviness and alleviate the heaviness that has been on my heart over the last couple of weeks. And so that's what I want to share with you guys, because I don't want this time that we are quarantined to be spent in a state of anxiety and fear and hopelessness when we could be using this time for higher vibe things. And so I've decided to cultivate my own new normal amidst everything that's happening around me. And here's what I'm doing and committing to. Number one is trying to keep some kind of routine so I have a sense of normalcy. When my routine is totally thrown off, my day is thrown off. I need to wake up at about the same time every day. If you need sleep, you take it, because when are we going to have this time again? Maybe never. So do what you need to do for your own body. But I need to have a routine, and I like waking up at around the same time every day. I need to be able to meditate in the morning. I like to read. I like to do some journaling, and I like to do some form of exercise. If I haven't done those things, my day is a little bit wobbly, because those are things that ground me. And right now, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but we need to do things that make us feel grounded and connected and like we have some sense of normalcy in our lives. What really flipped the switch for me the other day was waking up feeling this sense of sadness and hopelessness for the day. And this is not how I normally wake up. And so I knew that I had kind of reached my limit with all of the media and the way that I had been living the week before, which was just constant, constant, constant in my head, in my own thoughts. And the way that I got out of this was throwing down my yoga mat, even though yoga was the last thing that I wanted to do in that moment, and just forcing myself to move. And as I started to move, it's amazing what happens because our bodies are so intelligent and they store so much energy. When I started to move my body, it was like all of the stagnant energy started to flow and release. And I think not only is that a great metaphor for getting our thoughts out into a more positive place, but it's also a great example of what we need to do for our bodies so we're not storing this fear and anxiety and carrying it with us on a daily basis. And that morning yoga completely changed the trajectory of the rest of my day because I felt like I respected my body. I felt like I took the time mindfully to center and ground myself, and that made all the difference. So keeping a routine, waking up around the same time every day, having some kind of morning ritual is really, really nice to do. Exercising, moving so that you're not stagnant, For those of you that are listening who are like, I just can't get up off the couch right now because I'm so sad, or I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to wake up in the morning. I get it, and I have been there, but I'm just telling you, you have to get up, and you do have to move, and you have to take care of yourself because there is going to be life beyond this, and you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself during this time. And the last thing as far as routine goes, for me, is eating mindfully. Last week, it was like a free-for-all in my house. We got a bunch of non-perishable goods. We had cookies and cake and chips and all of the delicious things that people want to eat when they're sad. I don't think there's anything innately wrong with that. But a steady diet of junk will make you feel dead inside. What we eat affects our mood. It affects the way that we feel physically. It affects our energy levels. And so if we keep eating crap, we're going to feel like crap. If we want to feel alive, we need to eat things that are alive, or at least on the healthier side. And so after eating just so poorly for like 7 days, and after doing yoga, I was like, okay, I need to just completely reset my day. I need to eat clean today. I need to move. I need to be mindful of where my attention is going. And all of that just made such a giant difference. Another thing that I want to talk about in creating a healthy new normal amidst this chaos after the rug has been pulled from under us is limiting our time on social media and watching the news. Because here's what I have learned from watching a myriad of different news sources, from CNN to Fox to MSNBC to Reuters to the New York Times to Bloomberg. I've been following all kinds of different news sources. And for the most part, they are all fear-mongering, except for Reuters and I feel like the New York Times. I feel like they are fear-mongering. The left is accusing the right of being in the wrong. The right is accusing the left of being in the wrong. They're trying to cause dissension within our government and taking away any kind of faith that we have in our current president. Whether you like him or not, this is not the time to be losing all faith in our government because we need to band together. And so I feel like constantly being plugged into social media and news sources really drained my energy. And so I think it's incredibly important during this time to be informed so we know what's going on. But I would say it's also just as important to limit how much you are exposing yourself to all of this because it can be so incredibly toxic. It can just be so incredibly toxic in high doses. We want a small dose, like a vaccine dose, so we know what's going on, and not anymore. Beyond the fear-mongering that comes with being so plugged in to the media and to our phones is a sense of just being sucked into the vortex. And even though so many of us don't want to be quarantined right now, we don't want to be stuck in our homes, there's something beautiful that happens out of boredom, and that is creativity. My favorite songs have been written out of my boredom. My writing, so often, my favorite writing has been written out of boredom. You get the idea, on and on and on. Let's not be afraid to be bored for a minute. Whatever happened to making our own fun instead of consuming and consuming and consuming other people's content or news media, whatever it is? What about creating our own content? What about creating our own fun? Reading a book, unplugging for a while, and recentering ourselves. I think that's so important because, again, we have to be grounded in a time like this where it's so easy to feel untethered. Some of my happiest moments and memories in life were in college when I had college breaks where they felt aimless. I didn't necessarily have a destination that I had to be at. I didn't have an agenda for the day, but I was able to create and think. I wrote a bunch of poetry. And in those years, those formative years, I learned so much about myself that I carried in to the rest of my life. And so maybe this time could also be a reset button where we could do the same thing. Like maybe we don't have a schedule minute by minute for the day. So maybe we can be a little aimless and explore our thoughts or write poetry or journal or read that book that we've been waiting to read. All of this is it's scary, but at the same time, it's so cool that we have the opportunity right now to step back from our lives and take stock and figure out, well, not necessarily figure out, but we have the opportunity to choose how we want to move forward now, because this epidemic is changing us. And I don't think there's any way around that. Our economy is changing, and I'm not saying that that's for the worse, because I believe that it will get better, but this is affecting us on every level. And so now we have the opportunity to mindfully decide, do we want to go back to the way we were living before? Or is there a better way? Could we do this differently? Could we elevate? Could we do better? Could we inject more joy? All of those things I think are so important. But if we're constantly being barraged by the media and we're sucked into our phones, we're not going to take that time to think about those things that are so important and potentially life-changing. Another thing that I think is really, really important in cultivating this new healthy normal, and this is definitely an extension of what I just talked about, but it's learning to be still, allowing ourselves to breathe and just be. We don't have to be productive every minute of every day. And I would argue that being productive every minute of every day is just going to lead you to burnout and feeling completely like a shell of who you could be. So take the pressure off. Don't feel like this is the time where you have to learn a new skill or knock out every book that you've been meaning to read or completely redecorate and organize your home. If you want to do those things, do them, but don't put so much pressure on yourself that you take the joy out of the opportunity to rest, which I understand because I do that. So the only reason I bring that up is because that's my tendency, and I want to take this time to be mindful, to do this reset, to say, what am I doing? What have I been doing that I don't want to do anymore? How can I go about living in a more gentle, kind way? How can I inject more joy into my life? And again, in learning to be still, it's okay to sit, it's okay to rest, it's okay to stop. And I think for so many of us, we are scared of stopping because when we stop and we rest, that's when the ugly thoughts come up. But even in that, I think we have the opportunity to go, how can we retrain our brains? How can we deconstruct these thought patterns that are so toxic to our very way of living? But it's going to require us to get still to get to that point to address those things. And so, again, I just feel like this is an opportunity, despite the chaos, to get back to basics, which is what self-discovery is all about, and build a new foundation that feels more appropriate for the life that you want to be living this year, next year, 10 years from now. My friends, life is messy and life is confusing, and I don't want to get on here and tell you that I have every answer, but I will tell you this. I don't want my life to be defined by fear. I want my life to be defined by love. And during this time of uncertainty and chaos, the way that I feel like I can do that is by being grounded. It's by feeling connected to my soul and my mind and my body. It's about getting still and listening to what I feel like my intuition is telling me. And I'm doing that through creating a routine, making my bed, moving my body, eating mindfully, meditating, taking time to stop and take stock of my current circumstances so I can really think about how I want to move forward in this new world that we are going to be emerging into. I want to end with this. If you are feeling fearful, if you are feeling stuck, I'm here. You can reach out to me. Find me on Instagram at Jaclyn Steele, and I will help brainstorm some ways to help you get out of fear. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, I highly recommend writing yourself a letter from love, just like Elizabeth Gilbert said. It's such a beautiful way of connecting your thoughts to your hand and creating that engagement again between your mind and your body so you're not completely stuck in your head. So write yourself that letter from love. Allow your intuition to come through. Allow God to speak to you and give you guidance. And here's the thing. We don't need to have all the answers right now. We don't need to have tomorrow figured out. We don't need to have next week figured out. All we have right now is today. And so I would just encourage you to take a deep breath, intentionally try and let go of what no longer is serving you in this moment, and just try and do the next right thing. Is the next right thing getting up and stretching? Is it washing your face? Is it brushing your teeth? Is it reading a book that's going to give you hope? Is it picking up your laptop and doing some work that you know you need to do and just getting it done? Is it making yourself a beautiful meal that is going to nourish you and give you energy? Is it taking a nap because you haven't taken a nap in 10 years? Listen to that intuition and follow its lead. Fear is such a natural emotion, but we don't have to sit in it. I see you, I hear you. I want to be in this moment with you. I want to send you love. And I want to say that there is hope. There is hope. There is going to be life after this, and it will look different. But hey, maybe, just maybe, it's going to be absolutely, stunningly, eye-bogglingly beautiful. You have been listening to Self-Discovery with Jaclyn Steele. If you want to learn more about me or listen to the podcast, on my website, you can visit jaclynsteeleinternational.com/selfdiscoverypod. You can also submit questions there that I will then answer on this podcast. Please connect with me on Instagram. I really want to get to know you. It's at Jaclyn Steele, JACLYNSTEELE. And I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/official Jaclyn Steele. And guess what? Today, as of today, I'm on TikTok, which is really fun. And I'm letting my comedy side come out on there. So if you want to see some absolute silliness, find me on TikTok, Jaclyn_Steele. I wish you light, and I wish you love, and I wish you peace. Again, my friends, there is hope. This is not the end. I love you guys, and until next time, thank you for listening.